Futurama comic, issue 49. Leela's on a date with a demanding alien who hates where the table at the restaurant is. He somehow thinks the date's going well, and Leela's parents had signed her up for the blind date service without her knowledge. The alien should know he's just gonna scare her away with his apocalypse talk. Leela makes an excuse to end the date, and Fry is sad that she's on a date, so he has a secret listening device in the restaurant. Bender. That makes more sense. Bender says in front of the alien that he doesn't care that he can hear him, and fortunately Leela's polite enough to not get too mad at Fry. He apologizes just to humor her, and she says she just wanted a night to relax. She says they can't have a relaxing evening together because every time they're together, they always end up running for their lives. They go back to work, and Hermes is running away from flying missiles, so Leela has to shoot them all with a laser from a wrist thing that was just implemented in it now, for some reason. That could have been very useful against their enemies. Farnsworth says he'll get a reading off the both of them, and Hermes says it's their semi-annual stress test for insurance purposes. Fry's barely stressed out somehow, because he's slow to react. Leela's really stressed and told that she needs to relax. Hermes says he's sending her to a yoga studio. Bender goes to work hilariously damaged from a fight with gods. Farnsworth quickly picks him up, but his sense of humor file was deleted in the fight, so we'll need to see something funny to reboot it. And he tells Fry to tell him a joke. He says knock knock and gets pushed down the stairs, and Bender thinks his sense of humor is still deleted. Won't Farnsworth just replace the file? Won't you have backed up all of Bender? Why does the jerk even care if Bender gets a sense of humor back? All it does is make him laugh at things he shouldn't and cause trouble. He's better off giving him a new sense of humor chip that'd be more normal. Realistically, he's told Fries to go to the hospital. I guess the reason he'll probably be fine after the scene is that it's the future. It turns out her yoga teacher is her formal martial arts teacher, who's sexist 1,000 years into the future. Well, her subplot sucks. Him being an alien doesn't make this any less mundane. He calls Zoidberg his greatest student, and sadly, after he mistreats Leela, we don't get to see her time into a pretzel. It just cuts to that being the case. Thank goodness she doesn't spend the rest of the story there. But seriously, what were the chances of that guy being her yoga instructor? He's not a yoga teacher. Bender goes to a comedy studio, rather than simply getting Farnsworth to give him a new humor chip. So he tells a comedian he sucks, and the comedian's thin-skinned and talented enough, apparently, to just say he sucks because he's a vacuum cleaner. Fry finds everything there funny because of his painkillers. Bender gets asked if he can do better and gets allowed to take the mic. He asks people if they hate humans. And a robot says anti-human comedy is outdated by 5 centuries. He then gets nervous and changes his mind, trying to comment on lousy cats, which are actually robots somehow. And even though Bender's evil, he's still too scared to start making fun of them, even though he makes fun of all of his friends every day. But that's because he trusts them. It cuts ahead to him walking outside with Fry, saying they boot him off the stage and he was dragged off it by the hook. Why did he think he'd be good at comedy without a sense of humor chip? He's told he needs a gimmick, as opposed to a sense of humor file. Zoidberg apologizes, showing sympathy for Leela in an insensitive way. How can someone as poor as Zoidberg afford yoga anyways? Maybe he's only poor because he has bad spending habits. Leela's already given up on yoga, which makes sense because she never wanted to go to it in the first place. And she only agreed to it because Hermes forced her to. If that's the case, doesn't she have to find another yoga place? Zoidberg says he could make her relax with a pill that an evil pharmaceutical company sent him over the mail. After she agrees, Fry tells Bender to stop trying to prank him, setting him up with a toaster. And Bender reveals that he's gonna do a ventriloquist dummy act with a Fry dummy. Leela lampshades that it's a bit unlike her to resort to a pill to solve her problems because she's stubborn and acts tough. But she remembers her unlikable yoga instructor that I have to assume was too scared of her to press charges, and takes a pill to feel better. How did the head of a celebrity smash his glass case to pieces at the comedy place? It always went without saying that it didn't make sense that the celebrities would put up with being heads instead of full clones with full bodies. Somehow they accepted Bender back at the stadium, and even though a robot says that his act is bigoted, the robot says it's a dummy that looks like a human insulting the humans. So that makes it alright. Why? But he did have a kinda amusing pun with the dummy, even if humans do know what megabytes are. He does a great job at the comedy act, so apparently got his sense of humor back. Even though it was other people laughing, not him. He thanks Fry, and then as the dummy threatens Fry to scare him, and denies it. He walks out of the room, and it turns out Small Fry's a robot that can walk towards Fry to try to kill him. He somehow doesn't believe his own best friend, but still says he'll take him to a place where the doll couldn't hurt him. I can't wait for it to be explained, but even then, why would he have him as his dummy instead of a real dummy? This is confusing. What are the chances of him meeting a robot that was always around that happens to look like Fry? That's why I thought he made him. The alarm clock rings and then it gets offended that Leela told it to shut up. She apologizes and then gets worried because it's not supposed to talk. So somehow the pill made her go crazy instead of relaxing her. How? Oh, maybe it's because she's a mutant. She's still got a normal person brain. She doesn't think any differently. The pillow tells her she has dandruff and makes a pun. Somehow Leela thinks the pill worked as it intended and made her one with everything. It would have to be intentional. The pill would need to be intentionally made to make her like this with nanomachines. Did Zoidberg anticipate this? He wouldn't think she'd want this. She's told to write her parents more and lose weight for some reason. Why aren't all the lose weight jokes aimed at Hermes? So the inanimate objects are voicing her insecurities by nagging her. She complains and nearly gets hit by a car. Bender doesn't care enough about Fry to get a new dummy, or react to what it's saying to him. Calculon has a faulty memory and can't remember all the times he met Bender. I hope that's explained. He somehow doesn't decide to bring Small Fry with him and leaves him alone with Fry. So when he comes back, the room's damaged, and somehow he doesn't believe him. Bender says he was offered his own show, and Leela gets told her hands are too cold to steer, so she argues instead of steering for some reason and crashes. Fry has to dislodge the ship, and Small Fry attacks him in space, inexplicably having his own tiny astronaut suit. This subplot sucks. How does Bender think they're getting along? It's not even explained that Bender is pretending not to believe Fry to be a jerk. Then Bender comes back to work and reveals that he has even more dummies because he can't fill an hour's worth of time at a show without them. He gets called by his agent, and Leela tells Farnsworth what the pill did to her, and Hermes tries to fire her before she ended up costing the company health plan money. It turns out she's able to actually hear inanimate objects talk. Either that or she can read his mind, because his jacket tells her he took a half day off 5 years ago and claimed it on his pay as a 3 out of 4 day, which is his greatest shame. So he accepts the blackmail and doesn't fire her. That was convenient. Why not just not write him to try to fire her? The dummies threaten the crew, and Farnsworth finds out that Bender has been using his cloning tanks, which was easier than learning how to carve wooden puppets. Couldn't he force someone else to do that? And he was dumb enough to alter their brains to hate humans so that their jokes would seem more sincere, instead of altering their brains to be good actors. This whole plot was from a stupid idea of Bender, so it's an idiot plot. Then it turns out the Mini Bender hates robots because Mini Farnsworth made him out of his spare parts. Then it cuts ahead to a minute later where all the bad guys are lying down defeated. Zoidberg says that realistically, fighting much smaller versions of yourself isn't hard at all. I wish we actually got to see the fight. Farnsworth says he'll cure Leela by installing a mental voicemail chip in her head. He uses one all the time. He programs it to screen the voices of anyone talking to him, and he uses it anytime he doesn't want to listen to someone. So he's always been a cyborg. Why can't he upgrade himself a lot more? That was selfish but cool. It was nice of him to upgrade Leela like that for free. Fry apologizes to Bender an entire week later because he didn't get that TV series, and he's mad that Bitty Bender got the job instead by himself. He wouldn't get that job for the same reason Bender wasn't being successful by himself. Leela's much more relaxed with her very enviable male chip in her head and ignores Fry, and she's even able to play a message telling him she can't make it to this conversation right now. Which, if Farnsworth could do that, his crew would have known about his chip a lot earlier. So this is a new addition to it. And I guess no other issue after this will acknowledge this, so this issue's in its own little universe. It'd be better to explain that she had to have the chip removed because not hearing people meant she didn't get to hear vital information. And the pill's effects wore off after a while. Futurama comic issue 50. Mom's given a cake and makes a wish and lashes out at her minions because they're all still here. Why didn't she fire them then? It turns out she wastes money on an annual week-long youth-restoring beauty treatment, putting herself in a Botox coma, even though she never looks attractive and always looks old. So why does she think it works and keep doing it? She puts them in charge while she's gone. So that was contrived. Leela comes back to work 2 hours later than scheduled from her delivery to the planet Camouflage. She says it took forever to find because it was magically invisible and wasn't allowed to pick the route, even though she knows her way around space. Hermes is terrible, so he refuses to let her plan the routes because he thinks she'll be corrupted by power easily. And we see Bender steal his clothes and wallet off him too easily. Then Amy and Kif stand in line in space on a red carpet, going to a nightclub that only passes by Earth once every 75 years. The robot can scan the two of them, and he's programmed to let cute people cut in line. But Kif's the one who's considered cute enough to get in, and not Amy. Kif's considered attractive by interdimensional standards, and she runs away crying, humiliated. Then a robot bursts through the wall, scaring Mom's sons. The union bot demands them to stop using non-union workers, and they have until the end of this coffee break, which is now making 5 hours long. The sons get 2 hologram calls from CEOs who want to take over their company by the end of the day. Do they have to deal with this every time their mom takes a break for a week? How do they not lose the company by now? They get scared into falling as if they were pushed. And Kif goes into Zoidberg's office and gets told that Kif has a big head, large eyes, a small nose, and he doesn't have a girlish voice, so I don't know why he said that. He says Amy's cute on her own, apparently, but not next to Kif. So she decides to change his appearance because she's selfish, and it's easier than deciding on a better look for herself. We see the sons ready to hide that they're the ones left in charge, so one of them tries to pretend to be Mom, but they're too disturbed by it. Despite one of them not wanting to make Leela do it, she gets told to do it anyways. I thought they were gonna impersonate Mom with an android that looked just like her. Why on earth would they bother trying to get someone who wouldn't look just like her to imitate her? This is such a stupid plot. No one would think a Cyclops could work as her imitator. Those sunglasses don't even try to hide her eye. Why didn't she wear a mask or something that made her look just like Mom? She agrees to it to show Hermes that she can handle responsibility. But because she wants to be in charge of one of the most powerful companies on Earth, it's obvious that the writer will make her get corrupted by power, even though no one wants Hermes to be proven right. And she's always got power over Fry because she's the ship's captain. I don't think that corrupted her by power right away. Just made her annoyed at their antics. No one wants Hermes to be proven right. He's somehow even more unlikable than Bender. At least Bender acts optimistic. The Union bot talks to Leela, who lies that she's wearing sunglasses indoors because her eyes are sensitive to ugly. If Mom is known for being rude to other CEOs, why wouldn't word have already gotten out to the public that she's actually rude? Why would she even keep up the kindly act? She decides to have all of the workers be union. And I guess the reason she tells him he's gotta lose his non-union body parts is just to spite him for scaring her. How would there be any non-union body parts? He says he had a few upgrades overseas, and she kicks him down the stairs after he did what he was told. It makes sense since Hermes spent so long stressing her out, but it's still out of character. Kif's head is swelled because the tie is too tight and he can't breathe, and Amy doesn't care. Is that in character? Then the CEO's dad and uncle meet up with Leela in hologram forms, and one of them says they're gonna buy out all her stockholders. Too bad they haven't proven themselves to be good people yet, because normally I'd be glad to see one of the major villains of the series get taken down a peg. But these guys just do nothing but smirk, so I assume they know better than her. Leela thanks them for being so open about their plans to her. Out of nowhere, she accuses one of them of being a mutant because he's wearing a high neck collar and mullet. So she thinks he's hiding gills rather than having strange fashion sense, which is more likely. She says that brand of suit is sold only in the mutant city. With that evidence, she's gotta be right. She says it's illegal for a mutant to run a business because immigration is considered evil, and she wants to send them to prison for life for doing things that aren't wrong. Really, she just wants to get rid of her competitor, even if it means supporting a law that she hates. Then she wonders why Uncle Toby mixes past and present tense, and accuses them of being a time traveler from the future. Her figuring this out only makes sense because there was an episode with time travel because of Farnsworth. What about the time they were trying to get a new president elected who was from the future? Did he mix up the tenses too? I don't know. She says he came back to her time with information from his to get rich, and she used to work with someone who did that, and it's illegal. He depresses me by saying the future smells like garbage, which is also ridiculous. And they get told to turn their companies over to Leela and work for her on Monday as janitors. So they agree, and Leela gets congratulated and shown a list of what the Sons wanted to do next. Since they're jerks, she refuses, since she's in charge, not them, and has them thrown out of the building by a security squid. She does have every reason to think she should be in charge at this point. I don't want her to stay there, but someone else could, like an android mom that wouldn't suck. Some villains get stale as all they do is the same thing over and over. Once she assumed she was being told to do those things because those are her duties as a CEO, we see Kif dressed like a shy guy around Amy complaining about it. And people like him anyways, so she dumps him. Since the comic got away with having Mario cameos in it, it's briefly confusing that they think calling him a shy guy is going too far, and call Mario Jumpio instead. But at least Jumpio explains what he's all about. Fry complains that he's bored, and every couple of months he gets excitement. Then Ignar goes over to Bender, being bad at explaining himself. One of them says Farnsworth will never refuse a request from his son, making use of the retcon from the show that Ignar is his son, even though it was stated that he hadn't been with Mom in like 70 years until the series started, and Ignar is in his 20s. Now, if she stole his DNA without his consent to make him, in the hopes of making the best possible son, that'd make sense. Except in the first episode of the show, Fry was only told that Farnsworth was his only living relative. And you'd think they'd be able to find out about Ignar being related to him with the same technology. So Mom lied. Or she was mistaken. They think Farnsworth won't refuse to help his son, even though Farnsworth is evil, and went into denial at first at being told that he was his son. Ignar's naive enough to not know how reproduction works, even as an adult in the internet age. Farnsworth wonders if this is about all the birthdays he missed, and irresponsibly offers him his bank card to trust him to pay himself off for them, another thing that a genius wouldn't do. He gets asked what he wants, and all he really wants is to go to the amusement park, and he agrees, making him happy, while he falls asleep. Well, that was nice, but there's no logic to Ignar being sent to him alone. Fry gets a knock on the door hours later and hopes it's for him. Bender breaks the fourth wall unnecessarily, but then reveals he's just talking about a Calculon coloring book. The Sons get told what happened, and one of them's sad because he wanted to go to the amusement park too. One of them says Leela might destroy them all, being overly pessimistic there. If only they had name tags. They aren't distinct from each other. They don't do enough to make sure I'd remember their names. Leela makes a speech to the evil CEOs of Earth that with just a bit of research, she's discovered secrets about all of them. If it was that easy, why was Mom too stupid to do it? She tells them to turn over every company on Earth to her, somehow not immediately knowing that 1, eventually Mom would get ownership of those companies, and 2, she'd hate all the work she'd have to do running all of them and couldn't do a good job running most of them. So this is out of character for Leela. And Alien says they all had an agreement to let each other get away with everything. Why? Why would they like each other? Bender bursts through a door and Fry says stop, and Leela wonders how they got into the building when their security is state of the art. After Bender overloads me with exposition narrating all the different people they were gonna hire to break in, it's revealed that Walt told him he had a key to the back door. How could he wait so long to tell them that? Fry says that would have been nice to know before he bought everyone brunch, because Zap has a big appetite. I like that Fry and Leela talk to each other in whispers. He fails to talk her out of wanting more power and respect, and thankfully we see Amy crying because she misses Kif. Zoidberg tells her that when she's with Kif, her happiness reading's off the charts. She should have known that. She says she has to choose between being cute and happy, and I love that Zoidberg snarks for once. Yes, what terrible problems you have. As Fry and Bender are being taken away by security, Fry tells Bender that Leela's glasses are made of really valuable material, but the name for it immediately makes it obvious that he's lying. But since Bender agreed to go with him in the first place and should know why he'd want him to remove her sunglasses, he shouldn't need to actually fall for the lie to remove her glasses and reveal her to them. Leela doesn't get in legal trouble for impersonating Mom, which spares us a frustrating scene where she gets arrested. Fry apologizes to her and she's not mad because she knows power corrupts. But it didn't corrupt her when she was the queen of the jungle. I guess because she wasn't in power for long enough, and all she was really doing there was fighting animals. Then somehow Leela doesn't recognize Kif, even though he's still in his army outfit. He was bought flowers to apologize, but he's allergic to them. And she's selfish enough to think it's a win-win because now he looks awful, when it's only for now. Mom's happy about how her company was run when she was gone, which is smart of her. Her union problems were gone, and two of her main competitors are scrubbing the executive bathroom. Yeah, they're gone because everyone's unionized, so of course she's not hearing complaints of that degree anymore. She would find out they were unionized. What does she know by now? She says that she'll give them whatever they want because she's proud of them. The story ends with her having fun playing bumper cars with her sons. It won't kill the series to have her have good moments with them more often. There's nothing wrong with giving some characters some likable moments so you can actually stand them being around. That applies to Hermes too. This was a frustrating story. Bender has to get his sense of humor back by becoming a comedian after a sadly off-screen fight that could have gotten us to see some slapstick against him. It's so obvious he could have just gone Farnsworth to give him a new humor chip, or fix it. And he was just told he needed to hear jokes to get his sense of humor back, not tell jokes. Bender somehow doesn't believe Fry about the mini-clone he made of him wanting to kill Fry. Every panel where he didn't believe him should have been cut. It should have just skipped to the part where the protagonists were threatened with all of the other dummies. And why did it skip past the entire fight scene? You don't do that. It makes sense that it was easy because the dummies were so much shorter than them, but since we hated them, we had every reason to want to see them get defeated. And Leela's told she gets too stressed out and needs to relax, even though she doesn't usually act stressed out, just annoyed. So after an awful character inexplicably comes back to annoy her, she takes a pill that magically makes her able to hear inanimate objects talk to her, which wouldn't be released. I assume it only works like that for her. So the inanimate objects annoy us and her with their constant nagging. I guess a wizard made that pill. Still doesn't explain why the company sent it to Zoidberg. How could he afford to pay them for it? And the ending just ends with Leela being able to tune out Fry with the cybernetic chip in her head, but I'd rather see how things got back to normal. This story was about Leela of all people being asked to impersonate Mom, even though she has one eye, and the sunglasses don't hide it at all. And yet it took until she tried to take over every company on Earth for her to be exposed when Bender took them off. I don't know why Mom's sons even stopped her. They should have known that once Mom would come back, she'd be the one ruling every company on Earth and not Leela. Leela was being awesomely capable here. It didn't seem like she was doing a bad job. She should have known she'd be overwhelmed with work if she got every company though, and if just a little research was all it would take, Mom would have already done this. Amy's subplot made her really look bad, so it's a good thing she regretted it. But if Kif's really considered cuter than her, what took so long for her to be told this? Surely this would have been a problem she'd have to get over when they first started dating. Because they've met tons of aliens before who'd voice this opinion.